All right, moving right along with creation story. Creation 101, day 3, the appearance of dry land. Genesis chapter 1, verse 9 says, "And God said, let the waters beneath the sky be gathered into one place, so dry land may appear. And it was. God named the dry ground land, and the water sea. And God saw it was good. Then God said, let the land burst forth with every sort of grass and seed-bearing plants, and let there be trees that grow seed-bearing fruit. The seeds will then produce all the kinds of plants and trees from which they came. And so it was. The land was filled with seed-bearing plants and trees, and their seeds produced plants and trees of like kind. That means the apple seed produced an apple tree and apple fruit, and so on. It did not produce any oranges. That's a very simplified illustration. And God saw that it was good. This all appeared on the third day, with light now penetrating the unbroken overcast, with the buildup of appropriate atmospheric gases and the removal of other gases, and with a firmly established water cycle. The stage is perfectly set for the advent of land life. All Earth needs is a place to put it. Until day 3, the earth was still covered with water. So now dry land appear, and vegetation can appear with light coming from the sun. Understand that the sun was already created. Even though next we read in day 4, let the lights appear. It's like, did he create the light only on the 4th day? But what about the plant material, the vegetation that appears on the 3rd day? So this solves the mystery. So stay with me. On the 3rd day, dry land appear and vegetation, because there's light, some sort of a stable water cycle, that now the plants can thrive, and plants take in carbon dioxide and gives out oxygen. Oxygen is necessary, and the primordial earth doesn't have much of it, so it needs a long time for these vegetation to do its job, to take in carbon dioxide and produce oxygen enough, in the quantity enough that it would sustain a more sophisticated animal life and eventually human life. All Earth needs now is a place to put it, dry ground. That place is just what the Creator provided on day 3. Remember, up to this point, even as Earth's atmosphere is changed to allow light to penetrate, the sea still covered the earth. While solid ground already existed, it remained until this time underwater. As research now confirms, however, plate tectonic activity began to transform the heavy basalts of the ocean floor into lighter rock called silicates. Because silicates is lighter, silicates is lighter than the basalts. They float above the basalts. In due time, enough silicates build up to rise above the sea level, and at that point, dry land appeared. In the seas around Scotland, one can still see the basalt being pushed up from the ocean floor by volcanic activity to form islands of basalt. Once land masses rose above the sea level, erosion began to wear them down, but erosion could not keep up with Earth land mass buildup, but still has continued to this day. But the buildup of land mass exceeds that of erosion, so we continue to have land, earth to live on. And the physical evidence researchers of geology and geography have pieced together is that over a period of 4.5 billion years, Earth's land mass grew from zero. Remember, it was covered by water, grew from zero to 29% of the planetary surface. And that number holds steady today because throughout the Bible, especially in Psalm 33:7, Job 38, 8 to 10, it records that God is maintaining the status quo, where God tells the sea, this far you shall come and no more. Job 38, 8 to 10 speaks of God as shut up the sea behind doors and fix limits for it and set its doors and bars. This place is very poetical, that God tells the sea that, he shuts them up into, so to speak, this area, limit their existence to only this much, and the rest is dry land. So it has hold steady, about 29%. Land mass is about 29% of all of Earth's surface. And evidence also indicates there were times in Earth's history when virtually all the land came together to form one contiguous continent. We all know that the Earth was not like what it is today with some continents and islands and things like that. They were all joined together, and eventually, because of volcanic and tectonic plate movements, they separate and part, and we have what we have today. And Genesis 1:11 says, let the land burst forth with every sort of grass and seed-bearing plant. It makes sense that now vegetation has dry land in which to grow, while animal bone lends itself to fossilization. It is not so with plants. So we do not find plant fossils because they do not fossilize, only animal. So there is this debate, which came first, plant material or animal? We can date, we find animal bone fossils, but not plant. But there are other methods of measuring that and proving that plant life came before. It's got to, because what would the animals feed on without plants? So the appearance of plant life before animal life has to be measured and proven by other methods. It would make sense that plant life preceded animal life by the fact that the animals, when they appear, would have plant life as food in order to survive and thrive. In the specific case of land plants, absence of evidence cannot be taken as proof of absence. That means if you don't find fossils, does that prove that it did not appear? So here the argument is you can't prove it. There's no absence of presence doesn't mean absence of proof that there are other ways, like I said, there are other ways of measuring it. Plants, as said before, do not fossilize as easily as bone and shell structures of animals. So evidence of early plant life has to come from other sources. Indirect evidence of plants' early presence comes from our understanding of the oxygenation history of the Earth's atmosphere, because atmospheric oxygen comes from photosynthetic activity. So scientists surmise that the aggressive oxygenation of Earth's atmosphere that paved the way, like for the Cambrian explosion, could have been achieved only if vegetation had long been present on the continental land masses. Maybe this is the first time you've heard of the Cambrian explosion. The Cambrian explosion is just a massive amount of sea creatures that appear for a certain time on Earth. So they would need oxygen for their survival and thriving. So if there were not plant life that preceded before it, how would you explain that Cambrian explosion? So this is kind of a way to prove that plant life did exist, and for a long time, because of photosynthetic activity of the plants. They take in oxygen, take in carbon dioxide, release oxygen, and over millions of years would produce enough oxygen in the atmosphere so that it's possible to have the Cambrian explosion and eventually to have more intelligent land animals and intelligent life forms like you and I. But today, as research and as we have more sophisticated tools, today more direct evidence supports the biblical statement that vegetation preceded the proliferation of animal life, especially the proliferation as identified the Cambrian explosion. So even as research goes on with more sophisticated methods of discovery, it's proven it's congruous with the creation account in Genesis. And we need to know this because even as we debate Muslims, they are trying to fit the scientific account into the Quran. It doesn't fit, but they're juggling to make it fit. So much more that we should know that what is the scientific account and how does it fit into Genesis 1 to 11. I mean, we have a responsibility to explain it to ourselves and to others too. And we would not have to shy away from creation story and say, oh, it's allegorical, it's poetical, it's not meant to be scientific. But it is scientific. It's written like a scientific paper. If you really look at it again, a lot of us do not read the Bible again to understand. We kind of sort of know in our heads, in our minds, oh yeah, I know those stories, the parables, this, that, or the other. I believe, and we leave it at that. But as apologists, we need to go further than that, to explain that, did Jesus really say this? Did this really happen? What about the scientific record? Is it congruous with the creation story in the Bible? How do you know? And we have a responsibility to do this, and I hope that you will continue with me as I continue this exciting series.